She was a virgin, but she carried a secret in her blood that could destroy an empire. He swore he would never touch the daughter of the woman who ruined his soul, but then she showed up with a diary, a key, and a look that burned. If you love romance stories, watch till the end. You won't regret it. You won't. Subscribe to this channel and drop a comment letting us know where you're listening to this amazing story from. Now, let's get back to it. The bus pulled into the Port Authority bus terminal at 5 in the morning, and Alice stepped off, carrying only a faded blue canvas suitcase and a heart that weighed more than any luggage. New York City was slowly waking up around her, the noise of the cars mixing with a smell of coffee and exhaust she had never experienced before. 22 years of life between the silent walls of St. Clair's convent hadn't prepared her for this, for the chaos, for the motion, for the feeling of being completely alone in the middle of millions of people. She gripped the handle of her suitcase and walked to the taxi stand. The crumpled paper in her coat pocket had the address scribbled in the Mother Superior's trembling handwriting. 1847 Fifth Avenue. An address that sounded strange, almost unreal, like everything that had happened in the last 2 weeks. Her grandmother's death had struck like a bolt of lightning on a sunny day. Alice didn't even know she had a grandmother. For 15 years in the convent, she had believed she was a complete orphan, an abandoned child the nuns had taken in out of charity. But then a lawyer appeared, in a grey suit, thick glasses, and a leather briefcase that smelled of money. He brought papers, stamps, and a truth that changed everything. Helen Beatrice Miller had died alone in a luxurious apartment, leaving everything to a granddaughter she had never met. Everything. A penthouse apartment in a building worth more than the entire convent, a bank account with numbers Alice had to count twice to believe, and along with the inheritance, a dark wooden box with 3 items that made no sense at all. A crucifix broken in half with a thin gold chain that looked like it had been snapped by force. A diary with pages missing, as if someone had deliberately torn out pieces of the story, and a handwritten note in red ink that still haunted her. Don't trust anyone until you know what happened to your mother. The taxi took 40 minutes to cross the city. Alice pressed her face to the window, watching how New York changed its face as they moved into wealthier neighborhoods. The buildings grew taller, the streets cleaner, the people better dressed. When they finally reached Fifth Avenue, she understood she had entered a completely different world. The building was a tower of glass and steel that cut the sky like a blade. 23 floors of pure luxury, with a marble lobby, a vertical garden on the facade, and imported cars parked out front. The doorman looked her up and down when she introduced herself, clearly surprised that someone dressed in a simple wool coat and worn-out shoes was the new resident of the penthouse. In the elevator, Alice watched her reflection in the golden mirror. Straight brown hair tied back in a simple ponytail, fair skin that rarely saw the sun, green eyes the sisters always said were so too expressive for a proper young woman. She didn't know if she was pretty. In the convent, vanity was discouraged, mirrors were scarce, and she grew up without ever really looking at herself. But there was something in her face that had always bothered the sisters, an intensity they couldn't erase with prayers and discipline. The apartment was on the top floor. When the elevator doors opened directly into the living room, Alice had to lean against the wall to keep from stumbling. The place was immense. High ceilings, floor-to-ceiling windows that showed all of New York City below, furniture that looked like works of art. Everything in shades of white and grey, minimalist, cold, as if no one really lived there. She walked slowly, her footsteps echoing on the marble floor. The main living room had a breathtaking view. From there she could see Central Park, the skyscrapers of the financial district, the movement of people who looked like ants down below. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time, like everything in her new life. The apartment had 3 bedrooms, including a master suite with a walk-in closet bigger than her old dorm room at the convent. The kitchen was custom designed with appliances she didn't even know how to use. There was also an office with a huge library, filled with books that looked like they had never been touched, and at the end of the hall, a smaller room that was locked. Alice found the key on the key rack the lawyer had given her. When she opened the door, she found something completely different from the rest of the apartment. The room was cozy, with floral wallpaper, old dark wood furniture, and an iron bed with a crocheted quilt. On the dresser was a framed photo, A young woman with long hair and green eyes just like hers, holding a baby in her arms. Alice's heart pounded. She picked up the photo with trembling hands and sat on the bed. The woman in the picture had her face, but with an expression she had never seen in any mirror. There was happiness there. There was love. There was life. Under the bed she found an old shoebox. Inside were more photos, yellowed letters, and newspaper clippings. The photos showed the same woman at different times, at the beach, in elegant restaurants, always accompanied by a tall, dark-haired man with dark eyes and a smile that mixed charm with something dangerous. The letters were love letters, written in masculine handwriting and signed only with a G, but it was the newspaper clippings that made her blood run cold. Businessman embroiled in financial scandal. Gabriel Lancaster faces tax fraud charges. Lancaster heir accused of corruption. And finally, a small obituary, almost hidden in the middle of the crime pages. Joanna Miller Lancaster, 24, found dead in the bathtub of her residence. Police are investigating a possible suicide. Alice let the paper fall. Joanna. Her mother's name was Joanna, and apparently she had been married to Gabriel Lancaster before she died. The same man her grandmother had mentioned in the note, the man she wasn't supposed to trust. She picked up the diary she had brought from the convent and flipped through it again. Now the words made more sense. He looks at me as if I'm his property. I can't resist him, even though I know he'll destroy me. I have to run before it's too late. He said he loves me, but his love is a prison. The last entry, written in a hurried script, said, "Only, if something happens to me, may she never know who her father is." Alice closed the diary and walked to the window. The sun was setting, painting the sky orange and red. Down below, the city buzzed with life, with movement, with possibilities. She had spent her entire life in a small, controlled, safe world. Now she was alone in New York, the heir to a fortune she didn't understand, the daughter of a woman who was apparently killed by a powerful man. The intercom buzzed, breaking the silence. Alice answered, her heart pounding. "Miss Alice, this is the front desk. There's a gentleman here who would like to speak with you. He says it's about your grandmother." "What's his name?" There was a pause. "Gabriel Lancaster, ma'am." The world stopped. Alice gripped the intercom, feeling her legs go weak. He was here. The man from the note, the photos, the diary. The man who had possibly killed her mother was in the lobby of her building, asking to speak with her. "Ma'am, should I send him up?" Alice closed her eyes and took a deep breath. She could run downstairs, grab a taxi, and go back to the convent. She could pretend none of this was happening. She could go on being the orphan with no past that the sisters had raised, or she could find out the truth. "You can send him up." She hung up the intercom and ran to the bathroom. She looked at herself in the mirror and saw her mother's face reflected back. The same green eyes, the same curve of her lips, the same determination that shone through in the old photos. Joanna had loved that man, and apparently she had died for it. Alice combed her hair, put on a lipstick she found in the dresser drawer, and changed into a simple dress she had brought from the convent. It was nothing compared to the luxury around her, but it was what she had, and maybe that was for the best. Let him underestimate her. The doorbell rang exactly 3 minutes later. Alice walked to the door, took a deep breath, and opened it. The man standing in the hallway was exactly like the photos, only 15 years older. Black hair with a few silver strands at the temples, dark eyes that seemed to see right through her soul broad, shoulders covered by a suit that probably cost more than a car. He was tall, elegant, and had a presence that filled the space just by existing. But it was the way he looked at her that unraveled her inside, as if he were seeing a ghost, as if she were someone he knew very well but who shouldn't be there. "You look just like her," was the first thing he said, his deep voice stirring something in her stomach. "And you're the man who killed her," Alice replied, surprised by her own courage. Gabriel smiled, a small, sad smile. That didn't reach his eyes. "May I come in? We have a lot to talk about." Alice hesitated. Every instinct screamed at her to slam the door in his face and call the police, but her curiosity was stronger, and there was something in his eyes, an old, deep pain that made her step aside. 5 minutes, she said. He walked in and went to the window, looking at the view as if he knew every detail. This apartment was hers, Joanna's, your mother's. This is where we lived together for 2 years. Before you killed her. Gabriel turned and faced her. I didn't kill her, Alice. I loved her, and that's exactly why she died. The silence that followed was thick, heavy with 22 years of unanswered questions. Alice watched him, looking for signs of a lie, of manipulation. But all she saw was a man destroyed by something that had happened a long time ago. Tell me, she said, sitting on the sofa. Tell me the truth. Gabriel poured himself a glass of whiskey from the bar next to the bookshelf. His hands trembled almost imperceptibly. Your mother was impossible to describe, intense, brave, stubborn. She had an inner light that lit up any room she was in. I met her at an art gallery downtown. She was arguing with the curator about the interpretation of a painting, saying things I'd never heard from any woman. He took a sip and continued. I was different back then, younger, more arrogant. I thought I could control everything and everyone around me. Joanna showed me I was wrong. She wouldn't be controlled by anyone, and that fascinated and terrified me at the same time. And you got married? In secret. My family? Let's just say they wouldn't have approved of the union. Joanna came from a simple family, worked as an art teacher. To them, she wasn't good enough for a Lancaster. Alice thought of the photos she had seen. Her mother always looked happy next to him, but there was something in her eyes, a constant tension. What happened? Gabriel walked to the bookshelf and pulled out a book of poetry. She got pregnant, and my father found out about the marriage. The air in the room seemed to grow heavier. Alice felt a chill run up her spine. My father was a very powerful man. He owned banks, corporations, politicians. When he decided something should happen, it happened. It didn't matter who got hurt in the process. What did he do? Blackmail. Threats. He offered her money to leave me. When that didn't work, he started systematically destroying her life. She lost her job. Her family started having mysterious financial problems. Friends pulled away. Gabriel stopped talking and looked directly at Alice. She was strong, but she wasn't prepared for the kind of war my father waged. No one was. And you? What did you do to protect her? The question hit its mark. Gabriel looked down, and Alice saw the guilt he carried like an open wound. Nothing. I did nothing. I thought I could convince my father that I'd find a way to reconcile everything. I was a coward, and by the time I realized what was really happening, it was too late. Too late how? She had disappeared. She left a letter saying she couldn't take it anymore, that she had to disappear to protect the baby, to protect you, and 3 days later, the police found the body. Alice felt the world spin around her. But if she ran away, the body wasn't hers. My father faked everything. The identification, the reports, the burial. Your mother was alive, but officially dead. And you were taken to the convent as soon as you were born. Silence once again filled the room. Alice tried to process everything she was hearing. If Gabriel was telling the truth, her mother could be alive. But then why had her grandmother died now? Why the inheritance? Why the warning note? Where is she? I don't know. I've spent 20 years looking. I hired private investigators, hacked systems, offered rewards. Nothing. It's like she vanished into thin air. Gabriel finished his whiskey and moved closer to Alice. But now you're here, and that changes everything. How so? You're the proof that Joanna existed, that our love was real, and if my father were alive, he would do anything to make you disappear too. He's dead. 6 months ago, and that's why your grandmother could finally leave the inheritance to you. Helen was Joanna's mother. She was in hiding all these years, afraid of retaliation. Alice stood up and walked to the window. The city glittered below like a carpet of diamonds. Everything was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Why are you telling me this? Because you have a right to know. And because He hesitated. Because looking at you is like having Joanna back. She turned to face him. I'm not her. No, you're much stronger. Their eyes met, and something electric passed between them. A connection that made no sense, that was dangerous, that should be avoided at all costs. Alice felt her heart speed up and realized she was in completely uncharted territory. You should go, she said, but her voice came out quiet without conviction. I should, he agreed, but he didn't move. I don't trust you. And you're right not to. I'm dangerous for you, Alice, just like I was for her. But even as he said it, he took a step toward her, and another, until he was so close she could smell his masculine scent, see the small scars on his face that told stories she didn't know. Then why don't you leave? Because for the first time in 20 years, I feel alive. The sincerity in his voice completely unraveled her. Alice knew she should run, get away, preserve the safety the convent had given her. But there was something magnetic about Gabriel, something that pulled her in like gravity. I need to know what really happened to my mother. I'll help you find out. But you need to understand that this search could lead us to some very dark places. I'm not afraid of the dark, Gabriel smiled, and this time the smile reached his eyes. No, you're really not. He stepped back and walked toward the door. I'll leave my card on the table. If you change your mind, if you want to go back to the convent and forget all this, I'll understand. But if you decide to stay, if you decide to seek the truth, call me. Alice walked him to the door, fighting the urge to ask him to stay. And if I decide to stay? Then you'll find out who you really are, and I'll find out if it's possible to redeem yourself from a love that destroyed everything. He left without looking back. Alice closed the door and leaned against it, trying to catch her breath. The apartment returned to silence, but now it felt different, charged with possibilities and dangers she could barely imagine. She picked up the card he had left on the table. Expensive paper, gold-embossed letters. Gabriel Lancaster, CEO, Lancaster Holdings. On the back, a cell phone number was scribbled by hand. Alice walked to her mother's room and sat on the bed, holding the photo of her with the baby. For 22 years she had wondered who she was, where she came from, why she had been abandoned. Now she had some answers, but they only led to more questions. Her mother could be alive. Her father was a dangerous and seductive man who had destroyed the woman he loved. And she, Alice, was in the middle of a story that had begun long before she was born. She looked out the window and saw the city lights stretching to the horizon. Somewhere out there, maybe her mother was alive, waiting. Somewhere out there, people who wanted to hurt her could be planning their next move. And somewhere between fear and hope she would have to decide who she wanted to be. The obedient, orphaned girl from the convent was dying. In her place, a woman was being born. A woman with Joanna's blood and the determination to find the truth no matter the cost. Alice picked up her phone and dialed the number on the card. He answered on the first ring as if he had been waiting. I'm staying, she said, before he could say anything. Are you sure? I am, but we're doing this my way. And what's your way? Alice looked at her reflection in the dark window. The woman looking back had fire in her eyes. First, the truth, then revenge, and last, she hesitated. We'll see if there's anything left of love. Gabriel laughed on the other end of the line, a low, dangerous laugh that made something stir in her stomach. It will be a pleasure to really get to know you, Alice Miller. Lancaster, she corrected. If you told the truth about the marriage, my name is Alice Miller Lancaster. The silence that followed was charged with promises and threats. Welcome to the family, he said finally, and Alice knew there was no turning back. The morning arrived with heavy rain beating against the apartment windows. Alice woke up on the living room sofa, still in yesterday's clothes, clutching her mother's diary to her chest. She had spent the night reading and rereading every page, trying to find clues that could lead her to Joanna. Her cell phone rang at 7 o'clock sharp. It was Gabriel. Good morning. How did you sleep? I didn't, she answered, her voice hoarse with exhaustion. You need to eat properly and rest. What we're about to do isn't easy, and you'll need all your energy. What are we about to do? First, you're going to meet someone who might have answers about your mother. Can I pick you up in an hour? Alice looked at the window. The city was waking up under the rain, and she felt as if she were about to dive into very deep water. Okay, but I'm driving. You have a license? I got it behind the nuns' backs when I turned 18, one of the few rebellions I allowed myself. He laughed. You surprise me, Alice Lancaster. The name still sounded strange to her, but there was something comforting about it too, as if she had finally found a place where she belonged. After her shower, Alice looked in the mirror and decided she needed new clothes. The 5 outfits she had brought from the convent weren't going to work in New York. She took one of the credit cards the lawyer had left. She still couldn't believe she had enough money to buy anything, and went down to the garage. The apartment came with a parking spot, and to her surprise, a car was waiting for her. A sleek, silent, black Audi. The keys were with the doorman, along with a note. For Alice. With love. Joanna. Her heart leaped. Her mother had left that car for her. She had planned everything, even before Alice was born. The department store on Fifth Avenue had everything she needed. Simple but elegant dresses, comfortable shoes, a leather handbag that cost more than the sisters spent in an entire month. The saleswoman treated her with a deference that made her uncomfortable. Apparently, the credit card spoke louder than her appearance. When she returned to the apartment, Gabriel was waiting for her in the lobby. He was wearing jeans and a white shirt, more casual than the night before, but still irresistible. His eyes scanned the shopping bags she was carrying, and he smiled. Adjusting to the new life? Trying to figure out what my life is now. They rode up in the elevator together. His proximity affected Alice. In a way she didn't understand. There was something magnetic about this man, something that made her want to get closer and run away at the same time. Where are we going? To the home of a friend of your mother's, the only person who kept in touch with Joanna after she disappeared. Elena's apartment was in Greenwich Village, a bohemian and colorful neighborhood that contrasted with the cold luxury of the area where Alice now lived. It was an old brownstone with yellow walls and a small balcony full of plants. The woman who opened the door was about 50, with gray hair in a messy bun and blue eyes that filled with tears when she saw Alice. "My God," she whispered. "It's her. It's Joanna. Elena, this is Alice, her daughter." Elena hugged her tightly, as if she were a lost treasure that had finally been found. "Come in, dear, come in. I have so much to tell you." Elena's living room was the opposite of Alice's apartment, filled with books, paintings, colorful pillows, and the smell of incense in the air. It was a place where someone actually lived. "Joanna talked about you all the time, Elena. Said serving tea in hand-painted porcelain cups. Even before you were born, she knew you'd be a strong girl. She said you were going to change the world. Did you keep in touch with her after she ran away?" Elena glanced quickly at Gabriel, as if asking for permission to speak. He nodded. "For 2 years. She would call me every now and then, always from different phones, always terrified. She said she couldn't come back, that they would kill her if they found out where she was." "They who?" "The Lancaster family. Gabriel's father, mainly. Edmund Lancaster was a man without scruples. Joanna found out things about the family business that could destroy them." Alice looked at Gabriel, who seemed uncomfortable with the revelation. "What kind of things?" "Money laundering, tax evasion, fraudulent government contracts. The Lancaster company was a front for illegal operations. Joanna found documents, recordings, enough evidence to send half of New York's elite to prison. And she tried to use that against them?" "No, Joanna wasn't vengeful. She just wanted to leave, to live in peace with her baby. But Edmund found out she knew, and men like him don't leave living witnesses." The silence that followed was heavy. Alice looked out the window and saw children playing on the street, oblivious to the dark secrets being revealed inside. "Where was she when she called you?" "I don't know. She never said. Only that she was okay, that you were growing up beautiful and strong. The last time we spoke was 5 years ago. What happened?" Elena got up and went to a desk in the corner of the room. She came back with a yellowed letter. "She sent this. She said she had discovered something terrible, that she finally understood why she could never come back to New York, and that if anything happened to her, I should give this letter to you when you turned 22. Alice took the letter with trembling hands. The envelope had her name written in the handwriting she knew from the diary. "You can open it," Elena said softly. The letter was short, written in the same hurried script as the last diary entry. "My dearest daughter, if you are reading this, it means the time has come for you to know the whole truth. Don't trust anyone in the Lancaster family, not even him. The love we felt was real, but the price was too high. There is a safe in your grandmother Helen's apartment. The combination is your date of birth. Inside is everything you need to protect yourself and to find me. I love you more than my own life. Mum." Alice looked up from the letter. "A safe? What safe?" Elena and Gabriel looked at each other. "There's a safe in your apartment," Gabriel said. "Behind the painting in the office. I knew it existed, but I never knew the combination." "And you never tried to open it?" "It was hers, not mine." Something in the sincerity of his voice reassured her, but Alice still felt there was much more he wasn't telling her. "We're going back to the apartment now," she decided, standing up. "Wait," Elena said, holding her arm. "There's one more thing. Joanna asked me to give you this when you turned 22. She handed her a small golden key. It's to her apartment, the real apartment where she lived with Gabriel. The one you inherited was your maternal grandmother's. But Joanna had another place." Alice's heart pounded. "Where?" "Soho. A small apartment, but it was her sanctuary. That's where she kept her most important things." On the way back, Alice drove in silence, processing everything she had discovered. Gabriel watched her from the passenger seat, clearly bothered by something. "You're lying to me," she said finally, without taking her eyes off the road. "About what?" "About everything. About how much you know about what happened to her. You're not this broken, remorseful man you're pretending to be." Gabriel chuckled softly. "You're smarter than I thought. Then tell me the truth, all of it." "The truth is I knew about the safe, I knew about the key. I knew Joanna didn't die, and I've spent 20 years waiting for you to show up." Alice slammed on the brakes and pulled the car over to the shoulder, ignoring the honking of other cars. She turned to face him, her eyes blazing with anger. "You knew she was alive?" "I suspected. The body they found was never released for an independent examination. My father had contacts in the police, at the medical examiner's office. It was easy to forge documents." "And you never tried to find her?" "I tried, but she didn't want to be found, not by me." "Why?" Gabriel looked out, the window watching the traffic on the FDR drive. "Because I betrayed her, Alice. When my father started pressuring her when she needed me most, I chose to protect the family business instead of protecting her." The confession hit Alice like a punch to the gut. "What do you mean?" "My father gave me an ultimatum. Either I ended the marriage and took full control of the business, or he would destroy Joanna in a way she would never recover from. He had files on her family, on her friends. He could ruin the life of every person she loved. And you chose the company. I thought I could protect her in another way. Get her money, send her far away until things calmed down. But Joanna found out about the ultimatum. She found out I had agreed to step away." Alice felt a mix of anger and sadness. "She ran away because you abandoned her. She ran away because she lost faith in me, and she was right." Silence once again filled the car. Alice tried to process the information. The man beside her had betrayed her mother when she needed him most, and yet there was something about him that drew her in inexplicably. "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because you have a right to know who I really am before you decide whether to trust me." "And who are you, really?" Gabriel turned to face her. His dark eyes had an intensity that made her feel naked. "A man who made the wrong choice 20 years ago and has spent all this time trying to find a way to redeem himself. A man who looks at you and sees a chance to do everything right this time." "I'm not her." "No, you're better, stronger, more determined. Joanna was pure fire, but you're steel-tempered in fire." The way he looked at her made something stir in her chest. He was dangerous, this man. Dangerous in a way she didn't fully understand. "Let's open the safe," she said, starting the car again. Back at the apartment, Alice went straight to the office. The painting covering the wall behind the desk was an abstract piece in shades of blue and grey. She carefully removed it to reveal a digital safe built into the wall. Her hands trembled as she typed in her date of birth, 03/15/2003. The safe clicked and opened. Inside were organized folders, flash drives, CDs and photos. Alice carefully picked up the first folder. Documents, Lancaster Holdings, was written on the cover. She opened it and found contracts, spreadsheets, transcribed recordings. It was a complete dossier on the Lancaster family's illegal operations. Tax evasion, money laundering, bribery, cartel formation. There was enough evidence to bring down not only the company, but a good part of New York's political and financial system. "My God," she whispered. Gabriel was standing behind her, reading over her shoulder. She got more information than I ever imagined. The second folder contained photos. Gabriel with other businessmen in clearly illegal meetings, politicians receiving envelopes of cash, documents being signed at secret gatherings. "Did you know she was collecting this?" "No, Joanna was discreet. She had access to my computer, my files, but I never imagined she was documenting everything." The third folder had a different label. "Alice, for when you're ready." Alice opened it, her heart pounding. Inside was a longer letter and a map. "My dearest daughter, if you've made it this far, it's because you've grown strong enough to face the truth. I didn't die. I'm in hiding, waiting for the day you could find me. But that day can only come when you are prepared for what we will have to face together." Alice continued reading, tears in her eyes. "The Lancaster family will not stop as long as I'm alive. And now that you exist, they will want to eliminate you too. There is a lot of money at stake, a lot of power, but we have something they don't: the truth." The letter explained that Joanna had spent the last few years gathering more evidence, building a network of allies, and preparing a plan to finally bring down Edmund Lancaster and his entire organization. "But I needed you to grow up far away from all this. I needed you to become strong without being contaminated by our war. The convent protected you, but it also prepared you. Discipline, faith, determination. You will need all of it." The map showed a location in upstate New York. "When you are ready to truly meet me, go to this place. But only go if you are sure you want to enter this war, because once we start, there is no turning back." Alice finished, reading, and was silent for a long time. Gabriel said nothing, respecting her moment. "She's alive," Alice said finally. "Apparently. And you? Are you going to help me find her, or are you going to try to stop me like you did with her?" The question hit its mark. Gabriel moved away from the desk and walked to the window. "I'm going to help you, but you need to understand that this will be dangerous. My father died 6 months ago, but he had partners, allies, people who will do anything to keep their secrets buried, including you." He turned to face her. "I took control of the company when my father died. I've spent the last 6 months trying to clean up the mess he left, but there are contracts I can't break, commitments I can't undo without putting a lot of people at risk." "What kind of people?" "Honest employees who don't know anything, families who depend on their jobs, even some politicians who are trying to do the right thing." Alice put the documents back in the safe. Her head was spinning with information and possibilities. "I'm going to find her," she decided, "with or without your help." "It will be with my help, but first we need to prepare." "How so?" "If we're going to declare war on New York's elite, we need a plan. And we need to be sure you're prepared for the consequences." Alice walked up to him and stood very close, forcing him to look her in the eyes. "What kind of consequences?" "They'll try to buy you first, then they'll try to scare you. And if that doesn't work," he hesitated, "they'll try to kill me." "Yes. And you? What will you do when we get to that point?" The question hung in the air between them. Gabriel raised his hand and gently touched her face, his thumb tracing the line of her cheek. "I'll do what I should have done 20 years ago. I'll choose you." His touch sent waves of heat through Alice's body. She knew she should pull away, that this was too complicated, too dangerous, but there was something hypnotic about this man, something that pulled her in like a magnet. You could be lying again. I could. You'll have to trust your gut. My gut is telling me to run. And what else is it saying? Alice looked into his dark eyes and saw desire, remorse, determination, and something more. Something she couldn't name. But that made her heart race. It's saying you're dangerous in a way that has nothing to do with your family's business. Gabriel smiled, a small predatory smile that made something stir in her stomach. Your gut is right. He moved closer, and Alice could feel the heat of his body, the masculine scent that made her dizzy. It was crazy, she knew. This man had betrayed her mother, was part of a corrupt and violent world. But there was something about him that drew her in irresistibly. Alice, he said, his voice hoarse. Don't, she whispered, but she didn't pull away. Don't what? Don't kiss me. Not yet. Not until I'm sure I can trust you. And when will you be sure? When we find my mother. When I know the whole truth. Gabriel nodded and stepped back, but his eyes never left her face. Then let's go find her. Alice's phone rang at that moment, breaking the tension. It was an unknown number. Hello? Alice Miller? The voice on the other end was male, cold. Who's asking? Someone who knew your mother very well. I need to talk to you. It's about her safety. Alice's blood ran cold. How did you get my number? That doesn't matter right now. What matters is that there are people looking for Joanna, and now that you're in New York, they'll use you to find her. Who are you? A friend. Meet me tonight, midnight, at the Barnes & Noble on Fifth Avenue. Come alone. I'm not going to. If you don't come, your mother will die, and so will you. The line went dead. Alice stood there holding the phone, her heart pounding. Who was it? Gabriel asked. She told him about the call. His eyes hardened. It's a trap. Maybe. But what if it's not? What if it's someone who can really help me find her? Then why ask you to go alone? Alice didn't have an answer for that. But a part of her, the part that had grown up fearless within the convent walls, wanted to go. She wanted to find out who was on the other end of that voice. I'm going. No, you're not. You don't control me, Gabriel. No, but I can protect you, and I won't let you put yourself in unnecessary danger. The possessive way he spoke both irritated and excited her. You don't have a choice. It's my decision. Then I'm going with you. He said to go alone. And I said, I'm not letting you go alone. They stared at each other, the sexual tension mixed with stubbornness and concern. Alice knew he was right about the danger, but she also knew this could be her only chance to find her mother. Fine, she conceded. You can come. But stay back. If it's a trap, I don't want them to get you. If it's a trap, I'll be close enough to get you out of there. The rest of the day passed slowly. Alice tried to eat, tried to rest, but her anxiety wouldn't let her. Gabriel stayed in the apartment, making calls and arranging what he called security measures. At 11 o'clock that night, they left together. The Barnes & Noble was downtown, and even at that hour there was still life on the streets. Gabriel parked the car a block away. Stay here, Alice said. I'll be where I can see you. How? He showed her a small device. Hey, bug. I'll hear everything. Alice took the small device and clipped it inside her blouse. It was comforting to know he would be listening, even if she couldn't see him. If something goes wrong, I'll be there in seconds. She nodded and got out of the car. The walk to the bookstore felt like an eternity. The place was almost empty, just a few employees organizing shelves and a handful of customers. Midnight on the dot. Alice was in the American literature section when she sensed a presence behind her. Alice. She turned and saw a man in his 40s, well-dressed but with a tired face. There was something familiar about him that she couldn't place. Are you the one who called? I am. My name is Richard. I was your mother's lawyer. Was? Before she disappeared, I was the one who helped her fake her own death. The world seemed to spin around Alice. You helped her pretend to be dead. It was the only way to protect her, and to protect you. Where is she? Richard looked around nervously. I can't talk here. It's too dangerous. Then where? She was at a farm upstate, but we lost contact 3 days ago, and yesterday we found out her location has been discovered. Alice's blood ran cold. Discovered by whom? By Edmund Lancaster's partners. They know he kept compromising documents about them, and now that you've shown up, they know Joanna might be alive. What do they want? The documents and the silence of you both. Permanently. Alice felt her legs go weak. Is she in danger right now? She was. We don't know if she's still alive. The information was like a punch to the gut. Alice leaned against the bookshelf to keep from falling. I have to go there. It's too dangerous. They might be waiting for exactly that. I don't care. She's my mother. Richard sighed. I knew you'd say that. That's why I brought this. He handed her an envelope. The address of the farm and instructions on how to get there without being seen. But Alice, if you go prepared. These men won't hesitate to kill you. Why are you helping me? Because I promised your mother I would protect you if anything happened to her. And because, he hesitated, because I loved Joanna too. The confession landed like a bomb. You had a relationship? No, she only ever loved Gabriel. But I loved her in silence, and that made me want to protect her even when everyone else abandoned her. Alice took the envelope with trembling hands. If I go there and she's dead, then you'll have to decide if you want revenge or if you want to survive. And if she's alive, then the two of you will have to decide if you want war or peace. Richard turned to leave, but then stopped. Alice, don't trust Gabriel completely. He may have changed, but Lancaster blood is Lancaster blood. He left the bookstore, leaving Alice alone with her doubts and fears. She looked at the envelope in her hands and knew she had reached the point of no return. Outside, Gabriel was waiting in the car, tense. I heard everything, he said when she got in. And we're going to the farm now. Did you hear what he said about you? I heard. And he's not wrong to be cautious. Then why should I trust you? Gabriel started the car and looked into her eyes. Because this time, I'm going to prove I've changed, even if it costs me everything. As the car cut through the night toward upstate, Alice knew she was heading for a final confrontation with her past, and maybe toward the beginning of a future she couldn't even imagine. The drive upstate took 3 hours. They drove in silence along the dark highways, each lost in their own thoughts. Alice held the map Richard had given her, checking the instructions against every sign they passed. The farm was in a rural area near Hudson, isolated and surrounded by cornfields. When they reached the property's gates, it was already past 3 in the morning. The place looked abandoned, but Gabriel insisted they hide the car behind a grove of trees and walk the rest of the way. If it's a trap, at least we'll have a way out, he explained, checking the pistol he had brought, hidden in the car. Do you always carry a gun? For the last 6 months, yes, ever since I took over the company and started discovering the kind of enemies my father had made. They walked silently down the dirt road that led to the main house. It was an old farm, with a large colonial-style house and several smaller buildings scattered across the property. There were no lights on in any of them. Too quiet, Gabriel murmured. Way too quiet. They approached the main house cautiously. The windows were shut, but one of the back doors was ajar, swinging slightly in the wind. Alice felt a chill run up her spine. Something was wrong. Gabriel went in first, gun drawn. The house smelled of mildew and neglect, as if no one had lived there for a long time. They moved through the rooms one by one, looking for any sign that Joanna had been there. They found it, in the last bedroom, women's clothes still hanging in the wardrobe, beauty products on the dresser, and on the bed, scattered as if someone had left them in a hurry, were handwritten pages. Alice approached and immediately recognized her mother's handwriting. They were diary pages written recently. It's hers, she whispered, picking up one of the sheets. February 15th. Alice must be arriving in New York now. My heart pounds just thinking that I can finally see her after all these years. But I'm also terrified. What if she hates me? What if she can't forgive me for abandoning her? February 28th, Richard called me. He said Alice found Gabriel. I don't know if that's good or bad. My heart still aches when I think of him, but I also know she needs to know the truth about her father. She needs to understand why I had to run. March 5th, someone was here yesterday. I found footprints around the house. It wasn't Richard or any of the neighbors. I'm starting to get nervous. Maybe it's time to move again. The last entry was dated 3 days ago. March 10th. They found me. I saw strange cars on the road, men in suits asking about me in town. I have a few hours before they get here. I'm going to leave these pages for Alice to find. If something happens to me, she'll know I fought to the end, that I never stopped loving her, and that she needs to be stronger than I was. Alice's hands trembled as she finished reading. She was here, and they took her. Gabriel was searching the rest of the room for more clues. There are signs of a struggle here, he said, pointing to an overturned chair and some broken objects on the floor. She fought and lost. A noise from outside made them freeze, footsteps approaching the house. Gabriel quickly turned off his flashlight and pushed Alice behind the bed. They crouched in the dark, listening to the approaching voices. Are you sure she wasn't here? It was a gruff male voice. Positive. The room was exactly like this when we got here. But we should check if she left anything else. The boss wants all the documents, and he wants the daughter, too. The daughter's in New York with Gabriel. Then we'd better head there, leave someone here on watch in case she comes back. The footsteps moved away, but Alice and Gabriel remained hidden for a few more minutes. When complete silence returned, they came out of their hiding spot. Did you hear that? Alice whispered. They have her, and now they're after me. I heard, and I also heard they know where you are. The fear Alice felt turned to anger. Who are these men? Probably employees of my father's partners, men who do the dirty work for money. And where did they take my mother? I don't know, but we're going to find out. They left the farm carefully, taking the diary pages with them. On the way back to the car, Gabriel got a call. Lancaster. Alice could only hear his side of the conversation, but from his tone, she knew it was bad news. When? Are you sure? Okay, we're on our way. He hung up and stopped walking. What is it? That was my assistant. There was a fire at your apartment. The world spun around Alice. What? Around 2 in the morning. The entire apartment was destroyed. The safe, the documents, everything's gone. Alice leaned against a tree to keep from falling. In just a few hours, she had lost the apartment, the documents that could incriminate her mother's enemies, and any clue as to where Joanna might be. Was it arson? Definitely. They know you found the documents, and now they've eliminated the evidence. So we've lost. Gabriel came closer and held her shoulders. No, we still have a chance. How? Because I know these men. I know how they think, how they operate, and I know where they usually take people they want to interrogate. Where? There's a warehouse in Queens. My father used to use it for difficult negotiations. The way he said it made Alice's stomach turn. What kind of negotiations? The kind we can't discuss here. Come on, we need to get back to the city. The drive back was a nightmare. Alice couldn't stop thinking about her mother, probably being tortured for information she no longer had. The destroyed apartment, the lost documents, everything seemed to have been carefully orchestrated. They planned all of this, she said, as they re-entered the city. What do you mean? Richard's call, sending us to the farm at the exact time they set fire to the apartment. They knew we'd find the diary pages. They knew it would get us out of New York. Gabriel frowned. You think Richard is working for them? I don't know, but someone is. Someone who knows our every move. They stopped at a gas station at the edge of the city. It was almost dawn, and Alice felt like she was living a nightmare she couldn't wake up from. I need to tell you something, Gabriel said, pulling the car over. What? The warehouse I mentioned. It's likely your mother is there, but it's also likely it's a trap for us. I know. And even knowing that, you still want to go? Alice looked out the window and saw the sun beginning to rise on the horizon. She's my mother, Gabriel. She's the only family I have left. You have other options. Like what? We could leave New York. I have money stashed in other countries. We could disappear. The offer was tempting for a moment, to run away from it all, to start a new life, far from the dangers and secrets. But then Alice thought of Joanna, alone and afraid, counting on her. And let my mother die? Your mother made choices that led her to this situation. You don't have to pay for them. The coldness in his voice surprised her. Is that how you justify abandoning her 20 years ago? The question hit its mark. Gabriel looked away. I was younger, more of a coward. And now? Are you still a coward? Now I have more to lose. What? He turned to face her, his dark eyes intense. You. The declaration hung in the air between them. Alice felt her heart race. It was crazy, but there was something about this man that moved her in a way she didn't understand. You don't have me. Not yet, but I want to. Even knowing I could die trying to save her. Especially knowing that, because it shows the kind of woman you are, the kind of woman I should have protected 20 years ago. Alice felt something stir in her chest. It was dangerous, this feeling. Dangerous and ill-timed, but it was there, growing like a fire in the midst of chaos. Gabriel, I know it's complicated. I know you have every reason not to trust me, but when this is all over, when we find your mother and resolve this situation, I want a chance. A chance for what? To prove I can be the man you deserve, not the coward who abandoned Joanna. Before Alice could answer, Gabriel's cell phone rang. He answered with a tense expression. Yes? What? When? Okay, don't do anything until I get there. He hung up and looked at Alice with an expression she couldn't decipher. What was it? It was company security. There was a break-in at the office this morning. Did they take anything? Just one thing, my father's personal files, including the contacts for his partners. Alice felt a chill in her stomach. They're eliminating all the clues. Or they're preparing to eliminate everyone who knows too much, including your mother and us. Silence once again filled the car. Alice watched the streets of New York waking up for another day, people leaving for work, children going to school, a normal life while she was in the middle of a war she hadn't chosen. We're going to the warehouse, she decided. Alice? No. No more running, no more being afraid. If it's a trap, so be it. But I'm not going to let her die without trying. Gabriel sighed and started the car. Okay, but we do it my way. What do you mean? We go in prepared, with backup, with an escape plan, with everything we need to get out of there alive. An hour later, they were parked in front of an abandoned building in an industrial park in Queens. It was a decaying area, with empty warehouses and deserted streets. The warehouse was at the end of a dead-end street, surrounded by high walls and rusty fences. Gabriel had called 2 men who worked for him, ex-NYPD cops who now did private security. They were armed and knew the area. The main entrance always has 2 guards, one of them a tall black man named Robert explained, but there's a service entrance around back that's unguarded during the day. How many men do they usually have inside? Gabriel asked. Depends on the operation. For a simple interrogation, maybe 4 or 5. And for an execution? Robert and the other guard exchanged a look. For an execution, they don't bring anyone here. They do it somewhere else. So she's still alive, Alice said, trying to find hope in the information. Probably, but we don't know for how long. They made a plan. Robert would watch the main entrance, the other guard would cover their escape from the back. Gabriel and Alice would go into the warehouse and look for Joanna. If it goes south, you run, Gabriel instructed the men. We're not paid enough to die for this. And you? Robert asked. If it goes south for you? Gabriel looked at Alice. Then that's our problem. They split up. Alice followed Gabriel around the back of the warehouse, her heart pounding and her hands sweating. She had never done anything remotely like this. The most rebellious thing she had ever done was get her driver's license behind the nuns' backs. The service entrance was indeed unguarded. Gabriel picked the lock with a skill that made Alice wonder what else he knew how to do that he hadn't told her. The inside of the warehouse was dark and smelled of oil and metal. There were boxes stacked everywhere and some abandoned industrial machinery. In the back, a faint light came from a makeshift office. They approached in silence. Through a dirty window, Alice saw her mother for the first time in her life. Joanna was sitting in a chair, her hands tied behind her back. Her face was bruised, but she was conscious. She looked exactly like the photos, only 20 years older. Her hair now had streaks of grey. There were wrinkles around her green eyes, but it was undeniably her mother. Alice felt her chest tighten. There she was, the woman who had carried her for 9 months, who had given up everything to protect her, who had lived in hiding for 20 years waiting for the day they could be reunited. 2 men were in the office with her. One was sitting behind a desk, the other leaning against the wall. Both were armed. Gabriel grabbed Alice's arm as she made a move toward the door. "Wait," he whispered. "Let's hear what they're saying." "Last chance, Joanna. Either you tell us where the original documents are, or we'll go get your daughter and make her talk." Joanna's voice was quiet but firm. "The documents were destroyed in the fire. There's nothing left." "Liar. Edmund was too paranoid to leave just one copy. He kept backups of everything." "Then look through his things, not mine." The man stood up and approached her. "Your daughter is a pretty thing. It would be a shame if something happened to her." That's when Joanna exploded. "You don't lay a finger on her. Then tell us where the documents are." "I already told you I don't know. I ran away 20 years ago. How do you think I would know where Edmund kept his things?" The man raised his hand as if to strike her, and that's when Alice couldn't take it anymore. She stood up from their hiding spot, ignoring Gabriel's silent protests. "Stop!" she yelled, entering the office. Everyone turned to her, surprised. The 2 men immediately drew their guns. "Alice!" Joanna cried. "What are you doing here? You were supposed to stay away." "I couldn't let them hurt you." The man who had been interrogating Joanna smiled. "How convenient. The daughter came to turn herself in. I came to get my mother." "And you'll leave here with her, but only after you tell us where the documents your boyfriend's father hid are." "I don't know about any documents." "Of course you do. You spent the last few days searching your grandmother's apartment. You found the safe. You took everything that was in there. It was all in the apartment. You burned everything." The man approached her, his gun aimed at her head. "Don't get smart with me, girl. Edmund Lancaster didn't trust anyone. He had copies stored in other places, and your mother knows where." "I don't know," Joanna yelled. "How many times do I have to repeat myself?" That's when Gabriel appeared in the doorway, pistol in hand. "Drop your weapons." The 2 men turned to him, clearly surprised. "Gabriel Lancaster," said the man who had been interrogating Joanna. "What a surprise. Let them go now." "Or what, you're going to shoot employees of your own?" "Syndicate." "What syndicate?" The man laughed. "You didn't know? We're employees of Mendez and Associates Construction, one of the companies your father had a stake in." Alice saw the color drain from Gabriel's face. "My father sold his shares in that company." "Sold them to whom?" "To you. It's all in the name of Lancaster Holdings, which means, technically, we're your employees." The shock on Gabriel's face was visible. "I didn't know." "Of course you knew. Just like you know where your father kept the backup documents. And you're going to tell us now, or your little girlfriend is going to start losing pieces." The second man aimed his gun at Alice, his finger on the trigger. That's when the world exploded in violence. Gabriel shot first, hitting the man threatening Alice. The other ducked behind the desk, using Joanna as a shield. "Shoot him and I'll kill her," he yelled. Alice took advantage of the confusion to dive to the floor and roll behind the desk. Gabriel remained in the doorway, trying to find an angle to shoot without hitting Joanna. "There's no way out, Lancaster. You know you can't kill me. I'm an employee of one of your companies." "Ex-employee," Gabriel said coldly, and fired. The silence that followed was deafening. Alice slowly stood up and saw the 2 men on the floor. Gabriel ran to untie Joanna, who was in shock. "Are you hurt?" he asked. "No, not badly." Alice approached slowly. 22 years waiting for this moment, and now she didn't know what to say. Joanna looked at her and started to cry. My daughter. My girl. Mum. They hugged, and it was as if the entire world made sense for the first time in Alice's life. There, in the arms of the woman who had carried her for 9 months and then given her up to protect her, she finally felt whole. I'm sorry, Joanna whispered. I'm sorry for abandoning you. You didn't abandon me. You protected me. We need to get out of here, Gabriel interrupted. They might have called for backup. They left the warehouse quickly. Robert was waiting with the car running, clearly nervous. Heard shots, he said. We have to get out of here now. During the drive back to the city, Joanna told her story. How she had run away pregnant, how she had faked her own death with Richard's help. How she had spent 20 years in hiding, waiting for the right moment to return. Why now? Alice asked. Why did you decide to look for me now? Because Edmund died, and because you turned 22. The same age I was when I fell in love with your father. Alice looked at Gabriel, who was driving in silence. Did you know she was alive? I suspected, but I wasn't sure. And now, what do we do? Gabriel parked the car in front of a hotel downtown. Now you two hide while I handle this situation. How? By taking complete control of the company, shutting down all the illegal operations, turning the guilty parties over to the authorities. And if you can't, then we all run away together, far from here. Joanna took Alice's hand. He's changed. He's not the same man who abandoned me 20 years ago. How do you know? Because he came for you, because he risked his life to save me. The Gabriel I knew would never have done that. Alice looked at him. Is it true? I told you this time would be different. And what if I decide I want a normal life? Away from all this? Gabriel turned to face her. Then I'll drop everything and go with you. Even the company? The company, the money, the power, everything. I just can't leave you. The intensity in his voice made something stir in Alice's chest. It was crazy, she knew. She had only known this man for a few days, but there was something between them, a connection that went beyond logic. I need to think. I know, and I'll give you all the time you need. They checked into the hotel using fake names. Gabriel paid for 2 rooms and handed them the keys. I'm going to sort out the company situation. I'll be back in a few hours. He turned to leave, but Alice grabbed his arm. Gabriel? Yes? Be careful. I always am. No, be really careful, because I think I'm falling in love with you, and I don't want to lose anyone else I love. The confession hung in the air between them. Gabriel moved closer and gently touched her face. I'm falling in love with you too. And this time, I'm not going to screw it up. He kissed her, a soft kiss full of promises and possibilities. When they parted, Alice felt like a completely different person from the orphan who had arrived in New York a week ago. Come back to me, she whispered. Always. He left, leaving Alice alone with Joanna for the first time in her life. Mother and daughter looked at each other, still trying to believe their reunion was real. He's a good man, Joanna said, different from who he was. How do you know? Because bad men don't change, and I saw the way he looks at you. It's the same way he used to look at me, but without the possessiveness, without the need to control. Do you still love him? Joanna smiled. I loved the man he was. But that man died a long time ago. The one who's here now is someone new, someone who can make you happy. Alice went to the window and looked at the city below. In 1 week, her life had changed completely. She had found a family, a love, an identity, but she had also found dangers and responsibilities she never imagined she would have. Mum? Yes? Don't leave me again. Joanna came up and hugged her from behind. Never again. This time we stay together no matter what. Outside, the city continued its frantic pace, oblivious to the drama unfolding in the hearts of 2 women who had finally found each other. And somewhere out there, the man Alice was learning to love was fighting to build a future where they could all be happy, or at least alive. Gabriel didn't come back in a few hours. He didn't come back that day or the next. Alice and Joanna stayed locked in the hotel, watching the news reports about an FBI raid on businessmen involved in corruption. The name Lancaster Holdings appeared constantly. On the second day with no news, Alice couldn't stand the waiting any longer. "I'm going to look for him." "It's dangerous," Joanna said. "If the FBI is investigating the company, Gabriel could be in custody, or worse. Then I need to know. I can't just sit here and do nothing." "Alice, you barely know this man. Why are you willing to risk so much for him?" The question echoed in the silent room. Alice looked out the window, watching the movement of the city that had so unexpectedly become her home. "Because when he looks at me, I feel alive for the first time. Because he risked everything to save you, even knowing he could die. And because—" she hesitated, "because I don't think I can figure out who I really am without him." Joanna sighed. "You're just like I was at your age, too brave for your own good. And look where your courage got you. You managed to protect us for 20 years. You survived. But I paid a high price. I lost the first 22 years of your life." Alice sat next to her mother on the bed. "You didn't lose them. You gave me the chance to grow up free, away from all this violence. The sisters taught me discipline, faith, determination, everything I'm using now to fight for him, to fight for us, for a chance to have a real family." Joanna took her daughter's hand. "Then let's go find him, together." They left the hotel in disguise. Joanna had cut her hair, and Alice wore a scarf and dark sunglasses. The first place they went was the Lancaster Holdings office. The building was surrounded by the FBI. Official cars, agents in suits, police tape cordoning off the entrance. It was clearly an ongoing operation. "We can't get close," Joanna said. "Then let's find someone who can give us information." They went to a coffee shop across the street and watched the activity. That's when Alice recognized one of the men she had seen with Gabriel the day before. Robert, the ex-cop who had helped with the rescue. She left the coffee shop and approached him on the sidewalk. "Robert!" He turned, clearly nervous when he recognized her. "Alice, what are you doing here? It's dangerous. Where's Gabriel?" "I don't know. I haven't seen him since yesterday." "Yesterday? You spoke to him yesterday?" "He called me, said he was going to turn himself in to the FBI, that he was going to hand over all the documents and evidence about his father's illegal operations." Alice's heart pounded. "He turned himself in?" "That's what he said he was going to do, but I haven't heard from him since." "Could he be in custody?" "Could be. Or he could be in witness protection. Or—" Robert hesitated. "Or what?" "Or his father's partners found out about his plans and did something before he could talk to the police." Alice's blood ran cold. "You think they killed him?" "I don't know, but I know we won't find out by standing here on the street." Robert took them to his apartment on the south side. It was a simple but safe place. There they could talk more calmly. "Gabriel came to me 6 months ago when his father died," Robert explained. "He said he wanted to clean up the family's name, get rid of all the dirty business. He hired me and a few other ex-cops to investigate the operations." "And did you find a lot?" "A lot more than we imagined. Lancaster Holdings was just the front. Behind it was a network of shell companies, bought politicians, judges in their pocket. It was a billion-dollar scheme." Joanna spoke up. "Edmund was always ambitious, but I never imagined it went that far. The problem is, when you mess with these kinds of people, there's always someone left who doesn't want the truth to come out," Robert continued. "What kind of someone?" "Politicians who took bribes, businessmen who participated in the schemes, judges who sold verdicts. There are a lot of powerful people who will do anything to keep Gabriel quiet." Alice felt desperation growing in her chest. "So they might have killed him. Or they might be using him to get to you two. Joanna has information that could destroy a lot of people." "What information?" "I don't know anything else." "Yes, you do," Robert said. "Remember the pages you found at the farm, the last entries of your mother's diary?" Alice took the pages she had kept in her purse. She had read them several times, but hadn't seen anything beyond the account of Joanna's last days at the farm. "I don't understand." Robert took one of the pages and pointed to a specific sentence. Here. I finally found the proof I needed. The place where it all began still holds the secrets. What proof? What place? Joanna turned pale. The club. What club? The New York Businessmen's Club. It's where Edmund held his most secret meetings. He thought it was safe there because all the members had something to hide. And you went there? 3 months ago. I managed to get in by pretending to be a cleaning lady. I found a hidden safe in the office Edmund used. What was inside? Recordings, hours and hours of conversations where he and his partners planned their crimes. Videos, audio files, documents. Enough material to bring down half the state government. Robert stood up, excited. And where are these recordings now? Kept in a safe place. Where? Joanna hesitated. In the only place I know no one would look. In the Lancaster family crypt at Woodlawn Cemetery. The silence that followed was heavy. Alice tried to process the information. Her mother had hidden devastating evidence in the family crypt of the man she loved. That's brilliant, Robert said finally. Who would ever think to look there? But how do we get it? The cemetery must be under surveillance. Not necessarily. The police don't know about the recordings, and Edmund's partners don't either. Not yet, Joanna corrected. But if they got to Gabriel, he might have talked. Gabriel didn't know about the recordings, Alice said. No, but he knows about the club. And if they force him to talk... The conversation was interrupted by Robert's cell phone. He answered and turned pale. That was my contact at the FBI. Gabriel is not in custody. What do you mean? He never turned himself in. He disappeared 2 days ago and no one knows where he is. Alice's heart stopped. So they got him. Probably. We have to find him. Alice, it might be too late. No. Her voice came out louder than she intended. He's alive. I know he is. How can you be so sure? Because if he were dead, I'd feel it. And because they need him alive to get to us. Joanna stood up and grabbed her purse. Then we're going to get the recordings. It's the only bargaining chip we have. It's too risky, Robert protested. Everything is risky now, but sitting here waiting won't save anyone. They left the apartment as it was getting dark. Woodlawn Cemetery closed at 6, but Robert knew a security guard who could open the back entrance for a generous sum. The Lancaster family crypt was in one of the oldest sections of the cemetery, among the imposing mausoleums of other traditional New York families. It was a white marble structure, with stained glass windows and an ornate iron door. Joanna opened the padlock with a key she had kept for 20 years. Inside, the crypt was spacious and well-maintained. There were several tombstones on the floor and a small chapel with wooden pews. It's back here, Joanna said, heading to the altar. She moved one of the floor stones, revealing a hidden compartment. Inside was a flash drive and some CDs in a waterproof case. 20 years of crimes, she said, handing the case to Alice, all documented. That's when they heard footsteps outside. Someone's coming, Robert whispered, drawing his gun. They hid behind the pews and waited. The crypt door opened slowly, and 3 armed men entered. We know you're in here, said a voice Alice didn't recognize. Come out with your hands up. Robert signaled for them to stay quiet. But it was when they heard the second voice that Alice's world fell apart. Alice, I know you're there. It's me. It was Gabriel. But there was something wrong with his voice. Gabriel, she cried, coming out from her hiding spot. No! Robert tried to hold her back, but it was too late. Gabriel was standing at the entrance of the crypt, but 2 men were pointing guns at him. His face was bruised, and there was blood on his shirt. Are they forcing you to do this? She asked. I'm sorry, he said, and there were tears in his eyes. They said they would kill you if I didn't bring them here. One of the men stepped forward. How touching. Now hand over the recordings and maybe we'll let you live. The recordings were destroyed, Joanna lied. No, they weren't. We know they're in that case your daughter is holding. Alice looked at the case in her hands. It was that or Gabriel's life, and possibly theirs as well. If I hand it over, will you let us go? The man laughed. Of course not. You know too much. But I promise it will be quick. That's when Robert acted. He leaped from behind the pews, firing, hitting one of the men. The second one ducked, shooting back. Gabriel took advantage of the confusion to disarm the third. In the chaos that followed, Alice protected her mother and the case of recordings. The gunshots echoed through the crypt, sparks flying from the marble where bullets ricocheted. When the silence returned, 2 of the men were dead, and the third had fled. Robert was wounded in the arm, but alive. Gabriel ran to Alice. "Are you okay?" "I am. And you? What did they do to you?" "Nothing that won't heal." He looked at the case she was holding. "Are these the recordings?" "They are." "Then it's over. We're taking this to the FBI and ending this story once and for all." Joanna approached them. "Are you sure that's what you want? Once these recordings leak, there's no going back. A lot of powerful people will be arrested." "That's exactly what I want," Gabriel said. "I want to clear my family's name. I want you two to be able to live in peace." "And you? What will happen to you?" "I'll probably have to answer for some crimes my father involved me in, but I have good lawyers, and I have reasons to fight." "What reasons?" He looked into Alice's eyes. "You. If you'll have me, when this is all over. I want you now. I want to be with you through this. I want us to face this together." "Are you sure? It's going to be hard. The press, the trials, the threats. 22 years ago, you abandoned my mother when things got tough," Alice said, touching his bruised face. "This time, you're not alone. This time, we have a family." Gabriel looked at Joanna, who nodded in approval. "A family," he repeated, as if testing the taste of the words. "A family that fights together." Robert interrupted the moment. "Guys, we need to get out of here. The guy who ran off might come back with backup." They left the cemetery in silence. At the entrance, an FBI vehicle was waiting. Robert had called his contacts while they were still in the crypt. The FBI agent who met them was a serious, middle-aged man who listened to their entire story without interrupting. When Alice handed him the case with the recordings, he examined it carefully. "We'll need to analyze all this material, and you'll have to give detailed statements." "How long will it take?" Gabriel asked. "Months, maybe years. It's a lot of material, a lot of people involved." "And our safety?" "You'll be placed in witness protection until we can arrest the main players." Alice felt her stomach tighten. "Witness protection means we can't live normally." "For a while, yes. You'll have temporary identities, live in a secure location, with a police escort." "Together?" she asked quickly. The agent smiled. "You're a family now. We'll keep you together." 2 weeks later, they were in a safe house in rural Vermont. It was an isolated property, surrounded by police officers disguised as farmhands. The house was simple but comfortable, with 3 bedrooms and a large living room with a fireplace. Alice and Joanna spent their days talking, filling the 22-year gap in their lives. Joanna told stories from Alice's childhood that she didn't remember, and Alice talked about her years in the convent, the nuns who raised her, the fears and dreams she had growing up. Gabriel divided his time between video conferences with lawyers and the FBI and helping with chores around the house. He had changed a lot since that first meeting in the apartment. He was more relaxed, more open, as if a huge weight had been lifted from his shoulders. One night, after Joanna had gone to bed, Alice and Gabriel sat in the living room, talking by the fireplace. "Do you miss the city?" she asked. "Surprisingly, no. I like the peace and quiet here." "And the company? The power?" Gabriel laughed. "The company is being dismantled piece by the FBI, and I've discovered that power is useless if you have no one to share it with. And now you do, now I have you. And your mother, and for the first time in my life, that's enough." Alice moved closer to him on the sofa. "Gabriel?" "Yes?" "I love you." The words came out naturally, without fear, without hesitation. It had taken her a while to understand what she felt, but now she was sure. "I love you too," he replied, pulling her closer. "I love your courage, your determination, the way you've completely changed my life." Changed for the better, changed for the real. For the first time, I'm truly living. They kissed, and this time there was no rush, no imminent danger, no secrets between them. It was a kiss between two people who had found each other in the midst of chaos and decided to build something new together. When they parted, Gabriel held her hands. "Alice, I know it's too soon. I know our story is complicated, but when this is all over, when we can live normally, will you marry me?" Her heart leaped. "Gabriel, you don't have to answer now. I just wanted you to know that's what I want. A life with you, a real family." Alice looked at the fire, thinking about everything that had happened. 3 weeks ago, she was an orphan with no past. Now she was a woman in love with a living mother and a future ahead of her. "Yes," she said simply. "Yes? Yes, I'll marry you. When this is all over, when we can live in peace, I want to marry you." Gabriel kissed her again, and Alice felt as if the entire world had rearranged itself around her. She had found not only her family, but also her place in the world. 6 months later, the main arrests from the operation were made. Dozens of businessmen, politicians, and judges were arrested. Joanna's recordings became a key piece of evidence in what the press called the biggest anti-corruption operation in New York's history. Gabriel actively cooperated with the authorities, handing over all the company's documents and testifying against his father's former partners. In return, he received a judicial pardon for his unwitting participation in the crimes. When they were finally able to leave witness protection, they decided not to return to New York. They bought a small inn in a historic town in Vermont, where Joanna could finally live in peace, and Alice discovered she loved taking care of guests and organizing events. Gabriel sold all the family's assets and donated a large portion of the money to charity. He kept just enough to start a new life away from the corporate world. The wedding took place in the town's main church, in a simple but emotional ceremony. Joanna cried throughout the service, happy to finally see her daughter fulfilled. Robert was the best man, and some of the sisters from the convent came for the reception. On their wedding night, Alice and Gabriel stayed in the inn's master suite overlooking the mountains illuminated by the full moon. "Any regrets?" he asked, hugging her from behind as she looked at the view from the window. "About what? Leaving the convent? Looking for you? Fighting for us?" "About stirring up things you could have left alone. Your life was simpler before." Alice turned in his arms. "Simpler but empty. Now it's complicated but full of love." "And you're not afraid of the future?" "I am. But I'm not afraid to face it with you." They kissed under the moonlight, two survivors who had found peace after the storm. From the other room, Joanna heard her daughter's soft laughter and smiled. It had been worth it. The 20 years of exile, the fear, the longing. It had all been worth it to get to this moment. Alice was happy. Gabriel had redeemed himself, and she finally had her family back. Outside, the town slept peacefully, unaware that in a small inn, 3 people had found what few in life ever do: a second chance at love, at family, at happiness. And for the first time in a long time, the future seemed full of bright possibilities. 2 years had passed since the wedding, and life in the small Vermont town had settled into a sweet, comforting routine. Hope's Landing Inn, as they had named the business, was thriving with guests seeking the tranquility of the mountains and the family's warm hospitality. Alice woke up that March morning feeling strange. She had been waking up nauseous for 3 days, and as much as she tried to ignore it, she knew exactly what it meant. She was pregnant. The discovery came with a mix of joy and apprehension. She and Gabriel had talked about having children, but always as something distant for when they were completely settled. Now reality was here, growing inside her. She decided to tell Joanna first. She found her mother in the kitchen, preparing breakfast for the guests with the efficiency of someone who had discovered a new passion in cooking. "Mom, I need to tell you something." Joanna looked at her and immediately noticed something different. "You're pregnant." It wasn't a question. It was a statement, delivered with the most radiant smile Alice had ever seen on her mother's face. "How did you know?" "Because you have the same look I had when I found out I was pregnant with you. A mix of happiness and panic. And you? How do you feel?" Joanna dropped the spoon she was holding and hugged her daughter tightly. I feel like every sacrifice I ever made has finally found its meaning. I'm going to be a grandmother, Alice. They cried together in the kitchen, holding each other like two women who had lost so much time but now had an eternity ahead of them. Gabriel arrived from town late that afternoon, where he had gone to sort out some licensing issues for the inn. Alice was nervous to tell him, but when she saw him get out of the car, she knew she couldn't wait another minute. Gabriel. Hey, honey, how was your day? Different. She took a deep breath. Very different. Something in her tone made him stop and look at her more closely. Did something happen? Something happened. Alice took his hands. I'm pregnant. Gabriel's face went through a series of expressions: surprise, shock, joy, fear, and finally, a pure happiness she had never seen before. Pregnant, he repeated, as if testing the word. About 2 months by my calculations. A baby, our baby. Our baby. Gabriel scooped her up and spun her around, both of them laughing like children. When he set her down, there were tears in his eyes. I'm scared, he confessed. Of what? Of not knowing how to be a father, of repeating my father's mistakes, of not being able to protect you. Alice touched his face gently. You are not your father, Gabriel. You're the man who gave up everything to start over from scratch, the man who fights every day to be better. This baby is going to have the best father in the world. That night, they stayed up talking about the future. Baby names, how to reorganize the inn, whether they would need to hire more staff. They were practical conversations, but filled with love and expectation. I want him to grow up here, Alice said, stroking her still flat stomach. Away from the violence, away from the power games. I want him to have a simple, happy childhood. He will, Gabriel promised. I'll do everything to make sure of it. The first few months of the pregnancy passed peacefully. Alice had morning sickness, which Joanna treated with herbal teas and plenty of care. Gabriel became even more protective, insisting she not lift anything heavy and hiring another employee to help at the inn. It was when Alice was 5 months along that things started to change. First came the unexpected visitor. A man in a suit showed up at the inn on a Thursday afternoon, claiming to be a journalist who wanted to do a story on how ex-tycoons reinvent themselves in the countryside. Gabriel was immediately suspicious and declined the interview, but the man insisted he had already published their address on his blog. The next day, other journalists appeared, and photographers, and curious onlookers. This isn't normal, Joanna said, watching the activity on the street in front of the inn. Someone leaked our location on purpose. But who? Everyone who could hurt us is in prison, Alice argued. Everyone we knew about, Gabriel corrected, but there could be other people interested in our story. The answer came at the end of the week, in the form of a letter delivered by a local boy. For Gabriel Lancaster, from someone who hasn't forgotten. Inside the letter was a photo of Alice leaving the doctor's office, clearly pregnant, and a note. Children pay for the sins of their fathers. Your new family won't last long. Gabriel's hands trembled as he showed the letter to Alice and Joanna. Who could it be? Alice asked, trying to control her panic. Someone who lost a lot because of our cooperation with the police, maybe the son of someone who was arrested, or a partner who managed to escape the raid. What do we do? We leave, now, Joanna spoke up. To where? We can't keep running forever. Not forever. Just until the baby is born and we have a better plan. They closed the inn temporarily, claiming renovations, and moved to a rented house in an even smaller town near the New York border. It was a place so small it wasn't even on the map, where everyone knew each other and strangers were noticed immediately. The house was simple, with 2 bedrooms and a large backyard where Joanna planted a garden. Alice missed the inn, the guests, the routine they had built, but she knew the baby's safety was more important. It was there that Gabriel received the call that changed everything. Lancaster, this is Agent Santana from the FBI. Agent, did something happen? There was a breakout from USP Allenwood. 3 men who were imprisoned because of your testimony escaped late last night. Gabriel's blood ran cold. Who? Charles Mendez from the construction company, Joseph Santos from the bidding scheme, and— He hesitated. Edward Lancaster. Edward? My cousin Edward? Yes. He was serving time for his part in the money laundering scheme. Gabriel sat down heavily. Edward had been like a brother to him until he discovered his involvement in their father's dirty dealings. His arrest had been one of the most painful moments of the whole process. And you think they might come after us? It's likely. Edward, especially, always blamed you for the family's downfall. We intercepted conversations in prison where he talked about revenge. What kind of revenge? According to our informants, he wants to make you suffer like he suffered, to take from you what's most important. Gabriel looked out the window and saw Alice in the yard, talking to Joanna while stroking her 7-month belly. They were laughing about something, unaware of the approaching danger. How much time do you think we have? Not much. They escaped 24 hours ago, and we already know they have help on the outside. They could be heading your way right now. What do you recommend? That you leave your current location immediately, and that you accept police protection until we recapture the fugitives. Gabriel hung up and stood still for a moment, trying to organize his thoughts. Once again, the past was coming to collect. Once again, they would have to run. But this time was different. This time there was a baby involved, and he wasn't going to let anything happen to his family. He went out to the yard, where Alice was hanging laundry on the line. She was radiant with pregnancy, her hair shinier, her skin glowing, a serenity he didn't want to break. "Honey, we need to talk." His tone immediately alerted her. "What is it?" "There was a prison break. 3 men who were in there because of us escaped." The color drained from Alice's face. "Including who?" "My cousin Edward." Joanna came closer, clearly worried. "What does this mean?" "It means we need to get out of here now." "To where?" "The FBI has offered protection, a safe house until they're recaptured." Alice sat down in a yard chair, one hand on her belly. "Again, Gabriel, we have to run again? It's temporary, just until— Until when? When will it stop? When will we be able to live in peace?" The frustration in her voice broke his heart. Gabriel knelt beside her chair and held her hands. "I don't know, honey. I wish I could promise it will be over soon, but I don't know. What if it never stops? What if our child has to grow up running, hiding? It won't be like that." "How can you be so sure?" Gabriel looked into her green eyes, the same as Joanna's, and made a decision. "Because this time, I'm not running. This time, I'm facing them." "What do you mean?" "I mean I'm going. To end this once and for all, even if I have to turn myself in to protect you." "No." Alice stood up awkwardly, her large belly making the movement difficult. "You are not doing anything of the sort." "Alice." "No, Gabriel, you are not leaving me. You are not leaving our child without a father. We face this together or not at all. It's too risky. Everything is risky, but at least together we have a chance." Joanna came over to them. "She's right. Divided, we're vulnerable. Together, we're a family, and families fight together." Gabriel looked at the two, women who had completely changed his life. 25 years ago, he had abandoned Joanna to save himself. He wasn't going to make the same mistake. "Okay, together. But we do it my way." "What way?" "We accept the police protection, but we also prepare our own defense. I know Edward better than any cop. I know how he thinks, what he'll do." "And what will he do?" Gabriel looked at Alice's belly and felt a mix of protectiveness and fury he had never experienced before. "He'll try to separate us. He'll try to use you and the baby to force me to show up. Edward was always calculating. He'll want me to suffer before I die. Then we don't give him that chance." "How?" "By getting to him first. By finding him before he finds us." Joanna frowned. "Isn't that even riskier?" "Everything is risky now, Mom. The question is which risk is worth taking." That night they packed their bags once again. But this time it wasn't to run. It was to fight. It was to ensure that the baby on the way could grow up free, far from the shadows of the past. While Gabriel checked routes and talked with the FBI, Alice stood on the porch looking at the stars. One hand on her belly, feeling the baby move, she made a silent promise. "You will be born in peace," she whispered. "I'll do everything to give you the childhood I never had, away from fear, away from violence." The baby kicked, as if in agreement. "That's right," she smiled. "We're going to win this war. Together." Inside the house, Gabriel finished his preparations and made his own silent decisions. The time had come to finally face the past. Once and for all, the safe house was an isolated farm in upstate New York, surrounded by plainclothes officers posing as groundskeepers and farmhands. Alice was in her 8th month of pregnancy, and every movement was an effort. Joanna never left her side, alternating between back rubs and brewing teas to reduce the swelling. Gabriel spent his days studying maps and police reports, trying to anticipate Edward's moves. He had known his cousin since childhood, knew he was intelligent, patient, and ruthless when he wanted something. "He won't come straight here," he explained to Agent Santana during a video conference. "Edward will circle first. He'll study our routine, our weak spots. Only when he's absolutely sure of success will he attack." "And how long could that take?" "Weeks, maybe months. He's in no hurry." "But we are," Alice interrupted, walking into the room with a hand on her belly. "The baby could be born any day now." The agent seemed genuinely concerned. "We have a doctor on call here at the property and a hospital on standby 20 minutes away." "That's not what this is about. It's about not wanting my son to be born in a disguised prison." Alice, Gabriel began, but she cut him off. "No, Gabriel. Enough. I can't live in fear anymore. I want this to be over. How do you propose we do that? By using me as bait?" The silence that followed was tense. Joanna turned pale, and Gabriel stood up abruptly. "Not a chance. It's the only way. Edward wants to use me against you? Then let's give him that opportunity, but on our terms." The agent leaned forward on the screen. "Explain." "Edward will try to kidnap me to force Gabriel to show up. What if he kidnaps me, but in a controlled situation, with undercover agents, microphones, everything prepared?" "Hey, it's too risky," Gabriel protested. "You're pregnant, anything could go wrong." "Anything could go wrong anyway. At least this way we control the variables." Joanna spoke up. "She's right. We can't spend the rest of our lives on the run." "You agree with this?" "I agree that we need to end this situation. I disagree that Alice should put herself in danger to do it." "So what's the alternative? Wait for him to show up here? Endanger not just me, but all the officers protecting us?" The argument lasted for hours. In the end, they reached a compromise. Alice would be the bait, but with so many security measures that it would be almost impossible for anything to go wrong. Almost. The plan was simple. Alice would leave the farm disguised as a hospital employee for a routine doctor's appointment. Along the way, on an isolated road that Edward would surely be watching, the car would break down. While she was vulnerable on the side of the road, federal agents would be hidden in a 2-mile radius. Gabriel hated the plan, but he couldn't come up with a better alternative. On the morning chosen for the operation, he held Alice's hands before she got in the car. "If anything goes wrong, if you feel the situation is out of control, you run. Don't think about me. Don't think about the plan. You protect our son, and you run. Nothing will go wrong. Promise me." "I promise." They kissed, and Gabriel felt as if he were saying goodbye. Even with all the preparation, something didn't feel right. Alice got into the car with the agent disguised as her driver. Joanna stayed at the farm, watching everything on a camera system the FBI had installed. The drive to the designated spot took 40 minutes. The road was deserted, surrounded by cornfields that offered perfect cover for an ambush. At 2:30 p.m., exactly as planned, the car stopped with a simulated breakdown. Alice got out and leaned against the car, one hand on her belly, playing the part of a helpless pregnant woman. The driver lifted the hood and pretended to try to fix it. 10 minutes later, a black car appeared on the horizon. "Target in sight," the agent's voice came through the hidden microphone Alice was wearing. The car stopped a few yards away. 2 people got out, Edward and a man Alice didn't recognize. Edward looked different, thinner, his hair graying, a new scar on his face, but his eyes were the same as in Gabriel's childhood memories, cold and calculating. "Alice Lancaster," he said, approaching. "Or should I say Alice Miller? I'm never sure which name you prefer." "Edward." She kept her voice steady, despite her pounding heart. "I thought you were in prison." "Got out early for good behavior," he laughed. "Where's my cousin?" "I don't know. We split up a few months ago." "Liar. Gabriel would never abandon a pregnant wife, not twice." The comment hit its, mark. Edward knew exactly where it hurt. "What do you want?" "Justice. Gabriel destroyed my family, my future, my life. Now it's my turn." "He didn't destroy anything. He just exposed the truth about what you all did." "The truth?" Edward laughed. "The truth is he turned us in to save his own skin, just like he did with your mother 20 years ago." Alice felt a sharp contraction and leaned against the car. The baby couldn't be coming now. Not here. "Are you in pain?" Edward asked, noticing her discomfort. "What a shame. It would be terrible if something happened to the baby." "You wouldn't do that." "I would do anything. You have no idea what 2 years in prison does to a man." That's when the other man approached, and Alice saw he was holding a syringe. "This will knock you out. When you wake up, we'll be somewhere Gabriel will have to choose between saving you and turning himself in." "No," she screamed, trying to run. But her large belly made her slow, and before she could get away, the man grabbed her. The syringe was almost touching her arm when gunshots echoed down the road. Federal. Agents emerged from the cornfields, shouting orders. The man with the syringe fell to the ground. Edward pulled out a pistol and used Alice as a shield. "Back off!" he yelled. "Back off or I'll kill her!"